Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits tied to December 4th to December 10th. Before we get into any kind of recap or the week ahead, just quick little things. One, my allergies are killing me, so I might clear my throat a couple times. I do apologize. It's just the drainage situation. I'm not sick or anything like that. It is allergies. I get them year round. And with it being decay season, like it is what it is, i.e. it's fall/winter decay season. Two, if you have purchased a reading from me in the mid part of November, like they either just started to go out over the last few days or they're about to go out over Monday and Tuesday of this week, between the holiday that we had here in the US, because again, I'm starting to realize how many of my people that are listening to me do not live here in the US. So between the holiday we had here in the US and how many emergency one-on-ones I had to take last week through that Gemini full moon, because that Gemini full moon was pretty intense for some of you guys. And me reminding everybody, like, look, whatever's starting to come up this week, we come back to it in a month. Y'all didn't like me when I said that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. That Gemini full moon took us into Mercury being in shadows, so it has layers to whatever started to unfold during that time. But between those two situations, like, part of my readings got delayed coming out. So basically, like, I've been doing additional ones each day to try to get caught up. I should be caught up by the first of this next week, like literally the first few days. And then afterwards, anyone that booked that last week of November, because most of you seem to have waited till that very last week, I gave you an extra timeline anyway. So you guys will be fine. Just know that they're on their way out. If you have had readings that you're expecting, they're about to come out if they didn't already come to you over the weekend. Okay. Speaking of that full moon in Gemini, how y'all doing? That full moon in Gemini included a Mercury-Neptune square. And I said last week that that energy was meant to be met with confusion. It was meant to have people not seeing eye to eye, not understanding a full situation. Some people made a decision and decided to tell somebody, and it was met with confusion. How did we get here? Where did all this come from? Why did you think this was a good idea? And it was a continuous energy that kind of played throughout the week. We didn't have all of the information. Some of the things that once it was decided upon, or once somebody said something, it just didn't make sense. Some of us, it wasn't necessarily that. It was more along the lines of somebody said something and it didn't make sense, but it did make sense because we knew they were lying. And there was an element of fraud. There was an element of lies. There was an element of deception in that energy. Stealing, theft, some element. But it wasn't all negative. It wasn't all confusing. Some of us had a moment of inspiration. And that Mercury-Neptune square gave us an energy towards understanding how something was going to manifest. Understanding that something is coming through in levels. And it is going to take weeks to understand the full amount of what's coming together, because we are in such a prolonged transitional energy. The entire month of December is about transitions. That means both beginnings and endings. Now, as we continue through the week, we got to Friday and our mental state changed. It shifted. Now, I said this in last week's episode. I meant it then. I'm meaning it now. There was an energy that started to commence last week that is still going on going into the first of this new week that speaks to an ending. Whatever this ending is going to be something that is in levels, it is in layers. It's going to require some additional work. Now, for some people, that is a good energy. It was like, we hired this mechanic, they've had the car for weeks, and nothing is done. We still don't have an answer. We still don't have a solution. I'm about to hire a tow truck and move that car to another mechanic. I'm sick of waiting. That's an ending. Car, Mercury, those go together. Some of us had the same kind of situation, but it was like with a realtor. It was with a contractor. It was with somebody that we were trying to do business with. We realized, based off of either the non-existent conversation or the skirting around the whole situation conversation because sometimes we just want to be passive aggressive about everything, that something's not working. And there is an element for many people that started to play through on Friday, can still be a part of the energy as we get into Monday, about letting something go, leaving something behind, doing something differently, taking on a different kind of responsibility, shifting roles. Now, the thing about the weekend is there was a very big energy towards one, heavy, necessary communication, strategy, putting a plan together, looking at the facts, the figures, the receipts, and determining where something needs to change, what has gone wrong, where we can make an adjustment, how we can get something put together differently. The other element of this weekend's energy that's carrying into the new week has to do with overcoming fear, overcoming trauma, overcoming the past, overcoming a power struggle. And for some people, it is the strategy energy that is feeding into how we overcome the fear and overcome the trauma and overcome the past. And the energies that are all playing into that little bit of, I'm going to call it a whirlwind, but it's not a crazy whirlwind. It's spinning all these little things together, has to do with the fact that one, on Friday, Mercury changed signs. And for some people, if you had the ending on Friday, it was just like you had a situation that either you did do the ending right there, you paid off something, you got that, call from the mechanic and they made you so mad that it made you very aware over the weekend, like, no, I'm not talking to them anymore. You got something from another person, you got a bid after waiting for so long, you're realizing, this isn't serious. This isn't what I want to deal with. This isn't who I want to do business with. This isn't the way I want to do business. And there has been a conversation over the weekend about how we need to make a change. Now, some people, the overcoming the fear, the overcoming the trauma, the overcoming of the past has to do with what needs to end is a barrier. You have been separated for somebody for so long. You have not been having conversations with your best friend. You have not been having conversations with your business partner because everything is estranged. You are not having conversations with your family members. And some element of this weekend was just like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to do something different. I'm ready to reunite our family. I'm ready to start spending time with them again. I miss my friend. And some element of this weekend was having serious conversation about our feelings, about our emotions. And these serious conversations that were a part of the weekend came through because, one, Mercury went into Saturn's sign. And it immediately, upon entry, started a sextile to Saturn. And where is Saturn? Finally moving for the first time in 6 weeks in Pisces, in the emotional water Pisces, Jupiter's emotional sign. Pisces. Mercury made a sextile to Saturn. And we started conversations. We started getting a game plan. We started getting some ideas. We started a bit of a strategy on how we can work through something. But simultaneous to this Mercury-Saturn sextile, we had Venus in Libra, in her own home sign, coming into a square with Pluto, who is also in Capricorn, who is also in Saturn's sign. And there's been a very big energy towards karma, towards responsibilities, towards healing, and towards taking on the trauma, overcoming the past, overcoming a power struggle. For some people, the reason we haven't talked to certain people in our family is because we feel there's a power struggle. Sometimes the only way we can get over a dynamic is to allow for separation and space to happen, so that way two people can grow independently and then come back in a way that, for whatever reason, our energies as we're together, it hinders this growth. So separation for some people can be a very necessary thing. For some people, the conversation this weekend was a strategy towards taking on a separation, a temporary separation. Maybe you should go stay with a friend. Maybe you should go stay with your brother. Maybe I should go stay with my mom. Let's take a break. Some people had a break conversation. Not a breakup, more like a timeout. At least that's the way it should be starting. Now, if you had the breakup conversation, well, just know that if you said something very passionate in the moment, it's likely we're going to come back to it by the end of the month. However, given the way a lot of the transits were going and the way a lot of the highlights were, it was more along the lines of, we know we haven't been seeing eye to eye with somebody. We know we need to get over a situation. And a big portion of the energy is moving us towards where we need to make this next transition. Because the entire month of December, again, is about transitions. How do we overcome the past? And how do we start something new? Some people, where we are going to be having this transitional energy, is not going to be completely with new people. It's going to be with people that are from our past, but has had to go through separation. They've had to go through their own changes. They have had to go through their own things to be able to recognize, I was happy over here. I miss my brother. I miss my grandma. I miss my mom. We need to realize who we miss. And some of the conversations and some of the strategy that is starting to unfold, that started over this weekend, will still be a big part of the conversation as we get into the first part of this week. Some of the strategy is going to lead to the next barrier falling away. Now, notice how I said that. The next barrier. Because we already had a barrier. We had a barrier fall away last week. But the barrier that I'm talking about still includes Venus, but it's before the Venus-Pluto square, because I'm recording this on Sunday, and the Venus-Pluto square is still very active. And it will still be active as we go into Monday. But before this kind of kicked off, when we were in that confusing energy, Venus made a conjunction to the South Node. The South Node is an indicator of the body that has been released, tossed away, thrown to the side. We no longer need, we have outgrown. It is, again, the body with no head. So if we were in alignment, that energy was not an energy of release and emotional purge, or understanding something automatically, or suddenly feeling like we need to talk about something that is about to get cut off, that we are about to leave behind, that we feel like it is about to leave us behind. But for some people, that energy was about peace, feeling blessed, feeling at peace. For some people, that Venus-South Node conjunction was an internal activation of something that needs to change on a heart level, on a Venusian level. And for some people, whatever was activated there played out in the Venus-Pluto square. Whatever happened in that Venus-Pluto square is going to be a big portion of what's going to happen throughout this month while Venus is going through Scorpio. But immediately upon Venus going into Scorpio, another barrier falls away, and that barrier is tied to Neptune. Because Neptune turns direct this week. There is a veil, there is a fog, there is a barrier. The difference between Neptune and its barrier and the South Node is the South Node, again, it's attached to body. It's attached to the way we feel. It brings up a lot of emotion. Neptune is a planet of illusion and delusion. It likes to amaze. It likes to capture your imagination. It wants to change the way you see the world. In some ways, that can be how we create and manifest. In other ways, that's going to be spiritual. In other ways, it is about clouding and fogging judgment. And there are times when I've talked about Neptune that I have talked about the ways that it can cloud your judgment. Vices. Part of the strategy from this weekend was also recognizing where we need to change a habit, where we need to let something go, how we need to change our way of thinking of something, our way of communicating something. And that change is going to allow for some part of the barrier to fall away. There's a logical decision that leads to this barrier falling away. There's logical, necessary communication that is going to lead to this barrier falling away. We've had a cloud between us and a situation, between us and another person. We've had a smoke screen. We've had rose-colored glasses. And for some people, when Neptune turns direct, the glasses are going to fall away and we're going to realize, you ain't as great as I thought you were. I don't know why I thought you were like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now I'm sitting here going, you're not even a loaf. Like, how did we get to this point? And the barriers fell away. Something that has clouded our minds and clouded our judgment is going to fall away. An idealized or a predisposition way of thinking is going to fall away energetically this week. Now, when Neptune turns direct, and to be clear, Neptune turns direct on the overnight hours of Tuesday going into Wednesday. When Neptune turns direct, there isn't a heavy transit immediately that makes me scream like, this is where it's going to trigger. It'll be a physical trigger. Like sometimes I say that. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like we have some kind of conversation that makes us go, yeah, I'm open. Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, I'll have some coffee. No big deal. It's going to require a decision to accept a change, to accept something differently, and to strategically on two sides, so more than one, two sides, overcoming something. Because again, we are in an energy of transition, of letting things go and starting something new. Understanding something must end for something else to begin. The transitional energy will be where we're at all month. So let's get into the week. Now, again, we have two transits from the weekend that are playing into Monday. Those two transits, Mercury in its sextile to Saturn. This started over the weekend. It is still going strong as we start going into Monday. The other thing that is still very, very strong on the overnight hours of Sunday into Monday is Venus and her square to Pluto. So I'm starting Monday morning right after midnight because of this. So again, Venus is still in that square to Pluto. Venus is at the final degree of Libra. And for us to understand how we get something balanced, how we get something overcome, how we get something to work differently, we're still in this mindset of trying to understand it. Mercury, again, it's still in the sextile to Saturn. But there's also this energy that right before midnight, the moon, it went into Mercury's sign. It went into Virgo. We started last week in a full moon in Gemini with the moon being in Mercury's sign. We ended last week with the moon just having gone back into Mercury's sign. We had a shift in our mindset last week. That shift in our mindset is making us make a change. Some of us made that change on Friday before Mercury changed signs. Some of us had conversations start that are leading to us making this decision to make a change. And that change is likely going to come through on Monday. So let's talk about Monday. The moon is going to be in this opposition to Saturn. Now, this goes the most exact between 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Sunday night, and 1:30 a.m. Monday morning. That's why I have this at 12:30. It's right in the middle. While the moon is in this opposition to Saturn, the moon is in Mercury's sign, but it's also making a trine to Mercury. So this element tells me it's like we've had all weekend to get a plan together. We've had all weekend to get a strategy. We've had all weekend to talk about something, think about something, work through something. And in some element, it's like Sunday evening going into Monday. It's like bringing somebody else in or telling them about it, cluing them in like, hey, my weekend was kind of good. How was your weekend? Oh, my weekend was kind of good too. We were able to have some conversations. I had a great talk. I spent some time with my mom. I spent some time with my brother. I spent some time with somebody. And we see this element of just like tuning somebody else in to a situation. Now, the one thing that I will say about the first few days of the week while the moon is going through Virgo is that communication, and especially documented communication, is going to be key. Because if the decision we have just made or are in the process of making going into Monday is that we're not going to work with this mechanic anymore, we're not going to work with this person anymore, we need somebody else for representation, we need somebody else to be a part of the situation, I don't want you doing my stuff, I want somebody else to do it. If this is a part of the conversation, there's going to require some level of tangibleness to it. I want a refund, I want my keys back, I want a return. There's something tangible in some way. This can play out anywhere through Monday and Tuesday, because that's whenever the moon is going through Virgo. It can still linger into Wednesday, but these 2 days seem like the most key for what I'm talking about. Now, some of us are going to be up late Sunday evening, having real serious conversations, filling somebody in, letting somebody know. We have something going on, very much keeping us a little bit mentally busy. But it could also be about the strategy and about the plan of letting somebody know, hey, I want to talk tomorrow. Hey, I want us to meet. Hey, can we have a conversation? Hey, can we meet for coffee? And we can be having a late night text message or phone call or DM, smoke signal, whatever it is on Sunday, telling somebody that we want to talk the next day, that we need to work through something, that we need to do something. And this energy can speak to that. Okay. The moon's exact trine with Mercury is going to go the most exact between 3:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. So those I feel like kind of feed together, the Mercury, Saturn sextile, and then how they aspect the moon in Virgo. I feel like that all gets very tied together. It's like solidifying and telling somebody else, we need to talk, we need to work through this plan, we need to strategize. It is involving another person to the things that have already been going on over the course of the weekend. Okay. Now, between 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time and 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this trine to Jupiter. Simultaneous, the moon is also going to hit a square to Mars, adding a third layer to this. Right as the moon hits its exact square to Mars, and I mean to the minute, Venus goes into Scorpio. So you guys got to hear me out on this. For some people, the ending is going to be Monday. But the ending has to do with something that was agreed upon in the past, something from the past, that we had an understanding, we thought something was going to go a certain way, and some part of it didn't. We had a hope, but some part of it didn't. Some of us have been trying to strategize all weekend, and what we did is we went back through things over the past, trying to find something that did work. And once we found the solid solution, what happens is that the solution or the thing from the past is the moon trying to Jupiter, because Jupiter's retrograde. I'm getting a past vibe. The moon is trining backwards to Jupiter. I'm getting a past vibe. But simultaneously, the moon is hitting this square to Mars. This is an action based off of a past situation, a past conversation, a past thing. We are now pushing for a different action. Now, the other thing that's gone on all weekend is that Mars and Jupiter have been in this quincunx energy. They're still in it right now. They can't see eye to eye. They're not in agreement. They're not on the same page. There's some type of action we don't feel like is supporting another thing. We don't feel like this situation is supporting the action that needs to happen. We feel like there's been a lacking in something. The moon is connecting both Mars and Jupiter in this moment. These two haven't been able to connect for quite some time. There's been something of a disconnect between everyone and everything. And now we're having to have the serious conversation. Some people are not going to like the conversation that's being had whenever it comes to right here. We're trying to educate. No, this is why this is going wrong. It's just the market. It's just the situation. It's just that people aren't buying. Now it's the holidays. It's slowing everything down. It is what it is. Like we're just in this mode. We have to wait. And like, that's just it. I can't wait. The definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. If you've been doing the exact same thing over and over again since, I'm going to say two timelines here, May and or September, and you're not getting a different result, then it's time to make a change. And that's what this feels like. Now, why do I say these two specific timelines? One, because the last time Jupiter was in this area of the sky was May and June. But Jupiter turned retrograde in September, and these are why I'm listing these two timelines. We agreed on this, we wanted something, we had an idea, and it didn't work. Or we stopped doing it this way back in May. We started doing it this other way because Venus had a great idea. I'm going to blame Venus and the Venus retrograde. That's why I'm saying it this way. Because Venus had a great idea that if we do this, it's going to go great and it's going to be fine. But it wasn't fine. Some part of it hasn't been fine. Some part of it has not worked. And again, we are in a process of transition, of ending something and starting something anew, and this all feels very much tied to that. The moon is connecting an action that has not been able to connect. And once the moon hits its exact square with Mars, this happens between 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Right in the middle of that, at 12:51 p.m. exact, that's when Venus enters Scorpio. That's when Venus enters Mars' sign while the moon is going through the square to Mars. It is exact. You can see the moon here hitting the square to Mars. We've had that coffee. We've had that conversation. We had that appointment. We had that meeting. We talked about something from the past. We looked at how something used to go. We looked at the past agreement. We talked to the doctor. We talked to somebody. We got the results of something. We talked to the teacher. And now we're pushing for a new action. Now, this is a square to Mars. Mars might not be happy. Anyone that's in the Mars situation in this energy be like, Mars might not be happy. Mars might be very annoyed. Mars might not like how the conversation is going, per se. Another way of saying it would be like, every time I've gotten something from somebody in the past, every time I went to this doctor, every time I've gone to somebody and I've asked for their insight, they've never given me good insight, but your way of discussing something, your way of doing something has changed it for me. I understand it differently. I understand what's going on. I feel so much better. And this push of the moon to Mars could actually be an acknowledgement that leads to attention in a positive sense. So for some people, it's going to be a little bit of a negative. For some people, it's going to be a bit of a positive. So hear me out on that part. The reason I'm saying that is because as the moon squares Mars, right in this minute, right in this hour, that is when Venus is changing signs and going into Mars' sign. Some people, this trine to Jupiter square to Mars is going to make us aware of something in a good way. Sometimes it's going to be in a bad way. It really kind of comes down to what's been going on over the weekend, where you're at in your situation, how things are going moving forward, and how things are going to continue based off of that conversation. Some people you're going to be able to come to an agreement, like I have a different plan of action if you hear me out and give me time to do this plan, we could have a different result. And we go into a negotiation. And if they agree to the plan, then that is Venus going into Scorpio. If we don't agree to the plan, then that's Venus going into Scorpio. Understand that some of us are having to come to an agreement for an action. A lot of us are in this energy, actually. And again, Mercury is still very much in that sextile to Saturn. So this tells me that we're in this prolonged energy. The moon is in Mercury's sign. There's a lot of serious, weighted conversations involved. However, as tense and as pressurized as that energy can be, we will feel better once the pressure dies down. Now, for some people, the pressure is going to die down in the late part of Monday. For other people, that pressure is going to be actually dying down as we get into Tuesday. But part of that's also because we're going to go into the last quarter moon, and usually the last quarter moon does initiate a wind down in certain energies. So when does that quarter moon go into effect? Well, that's going to be the late part. This is the energy that wraps up Monday and takes us into Tuesday. So I've got this here. It goes the most exact between 10:30 p.m. on the 4th. So I've literally got it at 10:30. Here's the moon. It just hit 12 degrees. It's entering its square with the sun. It's entering the quarter moon energy, but it's not exact. Again, remember, Venus is now newly in Scorpio. And whatever actions, activities, whatever conversations that were just being had is now leading into something with Venus going into Scorpio. It is a big portion of whatever the energy is to how we move forward. And once we've had this hard conversation, once we sign the release, once we know that the car is not still sitting at the same mechanic, that there is a full plan of action to how something is going to go differently. We're getting new diagnostics. We're getting new information. We will be making new conversations. We will have a new plan of action. We will have a new conversation that lays out sometime this week. There is a relief, a mental relief, a hopeful relief. We are glad we changed our mind. We are glad we have had these conversations. Okay. So, I like the moon in Virgo this week. Again, it is right at that midnight hour when the moon goes into its square with the sun. After that energy winds down, like we can still have a lot of mental activity of like trying to, come to terms with something, trying to plan something out. But for some people, there can be a lot of mental peace. Some people might be just overthinking how something went wrong. It kind of depends on how all this plays out for you. If we are in the mental peace and we're sleeping really good going into Tuesday, if we're overplaying the scenario over and over and over and again, our hand, like, how could they have thought about that? How could that have gone so wrong? How could I have messed this up? How could this have happened? Some people will be in that energy. It really just kind of comes down to how the energy unfolds as Monday goes through. Okay. Now, as we get into the afternoon on Tuesday, specifically between 1:30 and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when we get the first transit on Tuesday, really and truly. There's just a lot of working, planning, process, procedure, strategy, having the things unfold. Will have a lingering effect of Tuesday morning where we get that final wrap up from the day before. So maybe the day before we told that mechanic they're not doing the car anymore. We got the tow truck set up and now we have to do the tow truck the next morning. We just know that we're getting into that peace mode. Some people were signing that final release. Some people were making the calls all day Tuesday of like, okay, who can come over here? Who can do this? How can we do this differently? Who can come do these bids? Who can come do this work? Who can come do this situation? And it takes us part of the day to work through and troubleshoot some things, but it's not necessarily in the negative sense. But there is an energy of troubleshooting and getting some things clear because Venus, all day on Tuesday, Venus is in a trine to Saturn. This is helpful, solution level energy. This is pushing something in a positive sense. Considering all the energy that we had the day before, now we're working towards something being progressive, taking steps forward towards having a new responsibility, becoming aware of a new responsibility. So again, that car goes to the different mechanic. The new mechanic is like, oh, well, here it is. This is now mine to work on. Thanks for the hot mess. Okay. Just an example. Some of us, the car thing made the most sense for whatever reason, but this kind of feels like that. It's like, okay, dun dun, I'm ready for you now. Here we are. Here's the baby. Okay. Venus and its exact trine to Saturn plays out at 4:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. Simultaneous to Venus and its trine to Saturn perfecting, we're also going to have a trine between Uranus and the moon. And this too speaks to something like proactive and helpful, something very tangible, but it's also speaking about something from the past and be like, okay, so I dropped this car off in September. What do you mean you dropped it off in September? Nothing looked like it got done. That's the problem. He had it since September and nothing happened. We signed these documents in May and nothing happened. I'm sticking with those 2 dates that I've already told you guys. Those 2 dates. We did this then. We waited to hear. We waited to see the next thing. We waited to turn something around. We found out the diagnosis then. We've been trying to get in with this doctor. They're supposed to be a specialist, and they never would return our calls. They would never do this thing. And some element of where we're talking to this new responsible party, Venus is trine to Saturn. We're also explaining what has gone on in the past. And the more we talk about it, the more shocking it feels. Like, really? Not a single callback. Not one attorney would call you back. Not one doctor's office would call you back. Never heard from the mechanic. Always said that they couldn't get the parts. I can get the parts by Friday. What do you mean get the parts by Friday? I can get the parts by Friday. That doesn't mean it's going to be fixed by Friday, but I can at least get the parts by Friday. There's a shock. There is a helpfulness. There is something unexpected, but there's also a hope. There is something that is helpful. Hearing from somebody that seems to be more aware, that has more experience, that has been more responsible. There's something here that is just meant to ease the mind. Offer a little bit of excitement. Again, offer a little bit of hope. And again, give us a little bit of healing, making us feel a little bit better about a situation. That this time is different. And that's a big phrase that I'm hearing for Tuesday. This time is different. This way is different. This person is different. This situation is different. And for a lot of us, it feels very, very right. Okay. Now, After this afternoon transit, now this can play out any time over the course of Tuesday. It just goes the most exact on Tuesday afternoon. And as the day progresses, we're going to get into this next round of interesting energy. Now, hear me out. This goes the most exact between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Central Standard Time. So what I'm about to explain applies to both Tuesday evening and Wednesday. Hear me out again. Tuesday evening and Wednesday. Because I warned you about my allergies. I apologize, guys. Okay. Because the moon is going to make this opposition to Neptune. I haven't been super heavy on the moon opposition to Neptune things, but there is some part of this relief. There is some part of this communication. There is some part of this decision. There is some part of this agreement. There is some part of whatever we've been dealing with these last few days of trying to put into order. The moon hits this opposition to Neptune hours before Neptune turns direct. How do you feel about this new guy? How do you feel about this mechanic? How did you feel about that doctor's appointment? How did you feel about the situation? How do you feel now that we're over it? I think we're in a better place. I think this is going to go correctly. I think that we're able to turn this around. I think this is going to be different. There is a veil, a barrier of some sort that falls away in the overnight hours of Tuesday into Wednesday. If you felt like you were being misled before, if you felt like things weren't going well before, if you felt like things weren't in the right place before, there's something about that changes in the overnight hours. Now, the moon's opposition to Neptune can also bring through a lot of dreams. The next round of dreams, the unveiling of something else. If you are more in the intuitive level, be aware of the universal messages and the synchronicities of however you get your messages in the overnight hours of Tuesday into Wednesday, because I anticipate something coming through. I anticipate something changing, and I anticipate some people that have been stuck in a fog, that have been stuck in confusion, that have been stuck feeling a certain way, that it changes. And it is a mental energy that I feel like changes in this mid part of the week. So again, the moon hits the opposition to Neptune between 11 p.m. on the 5th and 1 a.m. Central Standard Time on the 6th, so on Wednesday. And immediately after this perfects is when Neptune turns direct. It ends its retrograde. So let's do this. 7:30 a.m. Neptune. This isn't the exact. I'm just showing you on the screen. Neptune is direct. Neptune actually turns direct right as the moon is hitting its trine with Pluto. Now, the moon trine to Pluto, it actually goes exact the most between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Again, we just had a Venus-Pluto square that was a big part of the weekend going into this week. And simultaneous to the Venus-Pluto square, we also had a Mercury-Saturn sextile that is now separated enough to where we've worked through something. The moon's trine to Pluto is an understanding. It's seeing something tangible. It's seeing something resurface. It is seeing something come to light. It is having some level of communication. It is having a diagnostic. It is trying to put an understanding as to what has changed. For some people are like, this has been the craziest 2 weeks. I don't know what's going on. It's a timeline of transition. It is a timeline of change. And in some ways, we have to get to a mental understanding to just how much something has changed. And this isn't a heavy energy. I really do feel like we have this removal of a barrier that comes through that's going to allow for something to progress, that is going to allow for that turnaround energy that we haven't been able to see. It is going to allow for something to be understood differently. It's going to allow for something to come to light. Is it going to come to light on Wednesday? Not necessarily, but there is something that is transitioning. Now, the moon's trine to Pluto, the most exact between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So this feels like we have a conversation. We're having something work through. We see how something has changed. We get that little update. We get told by the mechanic that, hey, I'm going to have, I have those parts ordered. I'll let you know a delivery date. I'll let you know something else. I'll let you know what I know. You're not going to know immediately, but we automatically start to feel progress. We automatically start to recognize that something has turned around. We automatically see how something is different as we get into Wednesday morning. Now, after this, the moon goes void. So if you're trying to get something accomplished, if you're trying to start something new Wednesday morning, it might not actually start to really go into effect until the afternoon. The moon goes into Libra at 10:34 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I've got this at 11:30. It's an hour after it moved. Once the moon goes into Libra, there's going to be a lot more conversation and a lot more chatter. And there's going to be a lot more trying to figure something out, trying to put something into balance, trying to talk about how something appears. There can be a lot of image things that start to come through, but there can also be how something went through in the past. And we can be reflective again of, oh yeah, we're going to have this conversation. Oh yeah, they're supposed to call me later this week. And we feel like we've overcome something. And now we're talking to more people about it. Yeah, I made this change. I got a different mechanic. Yeah, I got this new contractor. He's going to start on Friday. He's going to come do this bid on Friday. We've got something else lined out, and there's conversations. Air gets a little busier. The moon in an air sign, there's a lot more busyness. There's a lot more chatter. How something looks, how something is making us feel. The moon is in Venus's sign, and Venus is now in Scorpio. It can be a lot about how something has made us feel. And there's something that we need to work through mentally. This is a different kind of mental energy than what we've been in. Now, as the moon goes through Libra and we go deeper into the evening on Wednesday, the moon is going to enter a square to Mercury. So here's the moon, 5 degrees in Libra. Here is Mercury, 5 degrees, 41 minutes. This goes the most exact between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. There is this energy here of asking some questions. And this is really interesting to me because the moon is entering a square to Mercury. But the next day, Mercury is going to hit a trine to Jupiter. The moon can't see Jupiter. The moon is not a part of this part of the conversation, but the moon is talking to Mercury. And again, there's this moment of like, almost like, I'm going to say trial and error. It's not necessarily trial and error, but it's pushing in a certain way. It's asking questions. It's helping Mercury with the strategy. It's making Mercury aware of something. And in a lot of ways, it almost feels like preparation. When I was meditating on this, and as I wrote my notes and stuff out, this felt like meditation, of preparation, not meditation. I was in meditation, and this felt like preparation. So think of it this way. We've all been in that time where we have a big test the next day. We have to go somewhere the next day. We have to do something the next day. And the moon in that square to Mercury is almost like it's preparing Mercury. You get those little flashcards, like the vocabulary flashcards where you have the word on this side, the definitions on this side, and it's like the moon's going, okay, give me the definition of a caucus. Give me the definition of denomination. Give me the definition of something. And it's like doing a flashcard thing with Mercury. there's this energy of like conversation, helping somebody through, helping somebody get through any type of fear or feeling of doubt, and preparing them. Sometimes we sit with somebody and we're talking about like interview questions. I don't know why. This is very specific. I know. This feels like something about an action that's about to take place, a communication or conversation or a connection that's about to take place that hasn't taken place yet. And we're preparing for it. This is what this felt like to me. The moon hits the square to Mercury. Now this, again, this is happening in the late part of the 6th going into the 7th. You can see this right here. We start getting into the 7th, and Mercury will hit its exact trine with Jupiter late on Thursday. But it's going to be in the Jupiter trine energy all day long. Now, in the early morning hours, the moon is going to sextile Mars. You can see that right here. So I got that. Sorry, went past it. This goes the most exact between 4 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So you can see the moon right here in the sextile to Mars. So it's like texting that person the next day going, good luck on your thing. Remember, Mars is in Jupiter's sign. So it's like a wishful action, or it's like a proaction, like, you got this. It's going to be so great. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. It's going to be a good day. You can handle it. You can take on the world. This is going to be so helpful. There's like a cheerleading energy right here. The moon is being supportive to Mars. At the same time, Mercury is entering that trine to Jupiter, and Mars is in Jupiter's sign. So there's something here that tells me like it's letting somebody know of a future action. For some people, it's the reminders, like looking at your calendar in the morning, like, oh yeah, I've got this appointment, this appointment, this appointment, this appointment. We're taking a mental approach to something. We're planning something out. We're talking something through. We're letting somebody know what our calendar looks like, what our day looks like. Taking account of future actions. At the same time, Mercury is in this trine to Jupiter. If you've ever had to go into, again, a test situation or an interview situation, these are the ones that I feel like the most. We're talking to somebody about how we want to turn something around. Some of us, it's not the test at all. It's more along the lines of like, okay, I've got to go meet with this place. I got to do a bid for this guy, and this guy. And this would be a really good day also to get a bid. Get a bid from a contractor. Some of us, like I just said, we just fired one mechanic, got a new one. We just fired one contractor, we're getting a new one. Now we need to get a new bid. This is a good energy for the bid. Now, after the moon's sextile to Mars, there's not a whole lot of lunar activity until the evening time. Well, until late afternoon. Mercury and it's trine to Jupiter, it doesn't go exact until the evening time. So that means we're still going to be in the Mercury-Jupiter trine energy as we even get into the 8th. So there is this energy of just talking something through, getting an idea of something, finding out a solution, finding out how we turn something around, creating a logical energy here that in some way we're going to come back to. Because Mercury will have 3 trines to Jupiter. The next one will be during the retrograde, and that one is going to be in less than 2 weeks. So this feels like something where it is going to have a future action involved. So if we drop something off the mechanic, hey, the parts are delivered. Okay, great. Oh, hey, I can give you that bid now. Oh, hey, yeah. This energy is proactive and it has layers. That means we're going to come back to it. This is a really good energy to get a bid, like I said. Contractor comes over, okay, yeah, I can replace all that wood trim around that window. We can put up this new area. I can build that shelf for you. I can do this. We're getting all these different things done. Yeah. I'll have you a full itemized written bid by the end of the day. That's great. Okay. In the in the late afternoon going into evening, I don't know why I keep wanting to say the wrong time of day because I got it right here. So between 4:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is now going to sextile the sun, and the sun is also in Jupiter's sign. So we're still in this proactive energy of like trying to find a solution, being supportive, and it's like talking to that person. Hey, how did the interview go? Hey, how was your test? Hey, did you get the bid? What'd you think of the dude? Some of us, we gave the recommendation. Did my contractor friend come over? Oh, that's great. I just wanted to see how it went. Like, it's a check-in. It's a touch. We're working towards something new because we're working closer to the new moon that's going to be in Sagittarius. It's going to be in Jupiter's sign. So again, we're working towards something new. We're transitioning into something. The exact Mercury-Jupiter trine does not go exact until late in the evening. So between 9:42 p.m. Central Standard Time and 10:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. So right here at 9:30, I'm close enough. Mercury, 6 degrees, 27 minutes. Jupiter, 6 degrees, 28 minutes. This energy is going to be something that we are going to be in on both Thursday and Friday. We're working through a solution. We're talking about something. We're going through a situation that we're going to come back to later. That's a big part of a turnaround. So this is meant to be helpful. I like this Mercury-Jupiter trine. This has a logical energy to it. This has a hopeful energy to it. This has the ability to start something. Mercury in a cardinal sign. The moon is also in a cardinal sign, but that doesn't apply for this part of the transit. Mercury's in a cardinal sign and Jupiter's in a fixed sign. So we're starting something that has a long-term effect to it. If you are using this energy wisely, this is a great strategy energy to how we can use the Mercury retrograde. But not everybody's in a strategy mode, so there's that. Anyways, okay. As we start to get into the 8th, Mercury again, that trine to Jupiter, it's still there, it's separating. In the early morning hours, I thought this was really interesting, and I don't usually pick up on Moon South Node conjunction in every episode, but I felt like this was speaking through this time. Whatever we're getting in the Mercury trine to Jupiter, we're getting some level of peace. We're learning something and we're feeling something change in the body. We're feeling some type of relief. The energetic barrier of confusion towards a situation has had a physical relief between Neptune turning direct. And now with the moon hitting that conjunction to the South Node, there is also this other level of peace. It's like feeling peace in my heart. I'm so glad we had this conversation. I'm so glad we got a different contractor. I'm so glad we took it to a different mechanic. I'm so glad we talked to the doctor about that. I'm so glad we've done something differently. There is this energetic relief. Now, for some people, if for whatever reason the last few days have not been helpful energy, maybe you've got something being highlighted or activated heavy in your natal chart, then this can be a next level of purge. Feeling like we need to let something go, feeling like we need to get something off our chest, feeling like we need to find some way of relieving ourselves. And the Mercury trine to Jupiter can be relieving how we feel about somebody. Some people, we might just feel the relief. Some people might need to purge and get a relief going in the communication. Again, because we're in the process of turning something around. Okay. The moon south node, it happens in the morning, and then afterwards, it's not that the moon is void, it's just that we're moving forward. We're still in this busy energy. Our next little bit of the transit doesn't happen until the afternoon going into the evening, and that's when the moon will hit its square to Pluto. Now, this is interesting to me because, again, of how we started the week. We've been in the process of dealing with something all week. We've been in the process of working through something all week. We've been in the process of strategizing something all week. This could be a final layer to everything we've been dealing with all week, to again, overcoming something. This can be a harsh conversation. I've been waiting for you to give me this something all week. You were supposed to give me that release. You were supposed to return my money. You were supposed to do something. There can be some element of tension here, especially if we did just have that purge, like we need to purge something else with the moon south node energy earlier in the day. We might get to the end of the day and just we go off on someone, or we see somebody else in that moment of their going off. I've been waiting all week for the refund. I've been waiting all week for a callback. I'm sick of this. I've been waiting all week for something. And for some people, this energy here can be triggering. I don't necessarily feel like it's meant to be triggering, but I do feel like it can be. It might not have anything to do with the week prior. It could be something else completely. We've had so many little things going on throughout the week that we get to this moment of emotional purge, and it's just like we have to let something out. And we can talk about how we're feeling. We can talk about how this week has gone and how it has transpired and how much tension has been there and how much frustration has been there. And we can have something that we need to, again, purge. The moon's south node conjunction can be the internal click, click, click. I need to get something off my chest. And then the moon square to Pluto can be the actual existential version of that, the real life version of that, the real world, the human effect, this situation. This can also be an energy of letting us know something else that we're about to change, something else that we're about to face, something else that we're about to deal with. Because why? The moon is squaring Pluto before the moon goes into Pluto's sign. So we can have something else that triggers here that takes us into the weekend. The moon square again to Pluto goes the most exact between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I've got this at 6:30. It is after the moon square to Pluto that the moon goes void. So we could want to go socialize. We could have something that happens that kind of triggers some feelings, that triggers some emotions. Just be aware of that. We can go into a very emotional energy because at 9:35 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Scorpio. So again, the moon will square Pluto, and then the moon goes into Pluto's sign. The moon going into Scorpio, for some people, is going to bring the next round of people to the situation. It's going to bring the next round of information. It's like we've talked to some people about how this week is gone, and now we're bringing something else in. In the late evening hours, between 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and 1:30 a.m. the next day, going into the 9th, going into Saturday, the moon is going to trine Saturn. Again, emotional understanding, talking about how something has gone, talking about how something has changed, and then getting an understanding of responsibility. Some of us, we got that call by the end of the week. I do have your parts. Now that I have your parts, I can give you a better ETA on timeline. I can let you know what's going on. And there is this energy that is leading into promise in a lot of different ways. Mercury is still in its trine to Jupiter. They're separating, but it's still there. But while Mercury is still in this trine, please note Venus. Venus is coming into the energy. The moon feels like an arrival. It feels like a confirmation. It feels like another person coming involved, another level of recognition, another form of aid, another form of awareness that's going to come through. Jupiter's in Venus' sign. So there's going to be somebody else that comes into play for us that has a different level of understanding, or we are the person that has a different level of understanding of how to handle a situation. How do we work through something? For some people, Venus and the moon's energy that's about to play through over the course of the weekend is going to be that next round of promise that comes through based off of the agreement with the contractor. Say you got the bids. We're getting more than one bid. Say you got all of the bids, and now we're going to make the decision. And now we're going to get the next layer. And now we get the next round. And now we get the next part of the focus. And that can come through as we continue through the weekend. I like the moon in Scorpio this time. Some people might feel a little bit triggered. Like I said, I'm not sugarcoating that. But there can be something here about emotional responsibility and a proactive energy. And that speaks because of the moon's trine to Saturn that happens in this overnight hour. While the moon is in Scorpio next weekend, we can have a lot of those dream energies come through. We can have a lot of, again, those downloads that are going to come through. And that is more than one reason why it's coming together. So let's keep this going. As we are in Saturday, the moon is going to conjoin Venus. Now, this is going to happen early in the morning between 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time and 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. The moon is going to conjoin Venus. So this is like, again, two people meeting up, two people having conversation, two people talking about their feelings. We're trying to get perspective. We're getting perspective in some way of one person's experience on another situation. Say you agree to this contractor that your friend or your family member recommended to you. You're talking to your family member about the mechanic that they recommended. Like, use my guy. He's done everything for me for years. It's so great. You should talk to my guy. He'll take care of everything. In some ways, we're talking about a past experience and the new experience. We're talking about a hopefulness. There is a meeting here between the moon and Venus. It's a conjunction, of course, but there is a meeting. There is an arrival. Venus is starting her opposition to Jupiter. This energy we're going to be in all weekend. The moon is adding layers to it because the moon is going to also hit an opposition to Jupiter. The moon is also going to hit this sextile to Mercury. So there's more people getting involved with everything that's going on, with everything that's getting talked about, with all of the conversations, with all of the situations. There's another element. Some of us were signing that final agreement with the contractor. I feel like this is the right thing to do. I feel like this is the right person to do business with. I feel like something is going well. Some people, this is not the continuous energy at all. We're getting into the weekend and we're in a whole different set of energies. And we're just feeling good after the entire week. And this little meeting here is just like, yeah, we did this and we did this and we went there. And oh yeah, I've been there before. And we're talking about something. Some people were giving a little bit of a push to have a conversation. And the moon's conjunction to Venus can be a push. When was the last time you talked to Jupiter? It's been a minute. Why has it been a minute? Well, I had all those squares to Jupiter over the summer, and I had a retrograde, and there was a hot mess, and I had to work through and learn some lessons, and Venus going through Libra was a reset. We're still in this energy of trying to understand something from the reset. And Venus hitting this activation of its opposition to Jupiter can be coming to terms with the reset. It can be showing somebody a whole different energy. It can be showing somebody the results of the reset. The results of her time of going through Libra, of trying to find balance. Okay. The moon's opposition to Jupiter goes the most exact between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So right after the conjunction to Venus, actually for a good hour there, it is simultaneous. So if we get this to about 9:30, you can see that. Moon conjunct Venus, moon opposite Jupiter. And then by between 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this sextile to Mercury. There's a lot of movement There's a lot about talking about how we feel. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of connections being made. And I like the energy of next weekend. I like the energy of this Venus opposite Jupiter, because I'm looking at this and I know that after Venus and this Jupiter opposition hits, that here in the next week, two things are going to happen. One, Mercury is going to turn retrograde. It is. But two, Venus in this opposition to Jupiter can also be one extra element that's triggering part of Jupiter's turnaround over this next month, because Jupiter's about to hit that 5-degree mark. Jupiter's about to hit that point of shadow that is both Mercury and Jupiter's point of shadow. Mercury from its retrograde back during the Taurus Mercury retrograde that happened between April and May of this year. It happened between 5 and 15 degrees. Jupiter's retrograde is between 5 and 15 degrees. So Jupiter's about to hit its point of shadow. It'll be there for a month. And then the third thing is that last eclipse point. The October 28th eclipse point happened at 5 degrees of Taurus. So understand that Venus and the Jupiter opposition here can signify more than one transitional turnaround energy. And this is a Venusian healing, going through its baptism level of turnaround. And it can trigger something very, very promising, very, very hopeful, and very, very healing. I like Venus opposite Jupiter for so many reasons. Now, the exact Venus-Jupiter opposition is not going to happen until the evening. So that's going to go the most exact around 9:35 p.m. So let's get this to 9:30 and you'll see. Venus, 6 degrees, 19 minutes, opposite Jupiter at 6 degrees and 20 minutes. You can see it very clearly right here. Opposition is the most exact. We've had this energy building and going through all day. We've been working through something all day. We've been feeling something come together. We've had this energy of hopefulness and promise. We've been having this interaction with another person and about another situation. This interaction here between Venus and Jupiter also is playing into the energy of Mercury, because Venus and Mercury are about to go into a sextile again. It's been building back to one. They've already been in an exact sextile. And that happened a month ago. But it happened whenever Venus was at 8 degrees of Libra and Mercury was at 8 degrees of Sagittarius. But neither one of them could see Jupiter. Neither one of them could feed into something. Neither one of them could help Jupiter. Neither one of them could get Jupiter's help directly. There's a lot more directness in this energy. There's a lot more straightforward back and forth, straightforward understanding, straightforward support. And given that Neptune is newly direct, we don't feel like we're hiding behind anything. Look, I told you how I feel. I never want to do business with them again. And now I'm in a whole different mindset. There's a very straightforward, not hiding behind anything level of energy that's unfolding next weekend. We get into the 10th, so we get into Sunday. The moon will still be in Scorpio, just to be clear. Venus will still be in its Jupiter opposition, so again, still that same level of energy. We're going to get into the early part of the morning between 10 a.m. and noon. And what's going to happen is the moon here in Scorpio is going to enter its opposition to Uranus. So you can see we're just past it at 11:30. I always just give you guys a good 2-hour range of when we're most likely to feel it. Venus is still in that opposition to Jupiter. Venus is entering her exact sextile to Mercury, but it's not perfected yet. So we're communicating this hopeful change. And for some people, what we're hoping for, what we're working through, what we're dealing with, what we're overcoming, what we're healing, where we're finding a new way of doing things is going to feel like a shock to some people, because not everybody's involved with our day-to-day life. This is like telling, you get to the weekend, you have, your brunch with your best girlfriend. You're like, oh yeah, how did the week go? It was a little crazy. It was a little busy. I did all this, and this, and this, and this. Like, there's another level of shock. Like, wow, I didn't expect all that. I thought this was going to get taken care of weeks ago. Like, you haven't even said anything about that car being at the mechanic. I thought you got it back like weeks ago. She's like, no. It's been there since September. It's been there since May. We've been waiting forever. Nothing has worked appropriately. I can't wait anymore. I'm so waiting for this to turn around. I'm so ready for something to change. And please understand, I don't feel like all of the changes are going to take place in December. The entire month of December is transition. So I feel like we get this element of shock here, but it's not going to have an instant solution. It's not going to see an instant result. It is something that is going to come in layers. And there can be like this unexpected, some people are being shocked by what they're hearing about. Some people were not expecting to hear everything to the system. Now they're going to have shocking stuff too. We're all subject to these energies. We're all subject to the situation. So some people are like, we're hearing about the person and the mechanic, but we were the one that had the contractor issue. Like, yeah, I had to fire, Bobby. He's been my contractor for years, but he wouldn't come back. He wouldn't return my calls. He wouldn't do the business. He wouldn't do what he said he was going to do. So I had to go with somebody else. Like, oh my God. Just done all your work forever. Yeah, I know, but things change. People change. Responsibilities change. Roles change. And some of us, we're going to be sitting down with somebody come Sunday morning and we're going to be talking about the changes. And some people are going to be a little shocked. That's okay. Doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. Okay. After the moon's opposition to Uranus, the next thing that's going to happen, and this is going to happen between 7 and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, is that the moon is going to hit a trine with Neptune. Some of us are going to get to the end of the week and we just need to unwind. We just need something to entertain us. We just want to talk about something that's nice. We just want to feel better. We just want to continue to clear our head and not feel like something is clouding our judgment. And we just need something happy. This is a great night to go to the movies. That's not even a joke. This is a great night to sit at home, like pick that new show that you want to binge, that new show on Amazon Prime, that new show on Netflix, that new show on Hulu. Let's find something that's going to capture the imagination, bring out the inner child in some way. We're going to binge watch a bunch of Marvel movies. We're going to binge watch something on Disney Plus. We're going to do something that's meant to be healing, that is meant to help us further get out of the funk, get out of the fog, break through a situation. Now, some of us, we did just make a reconnection. And that Venus opposite Jupiter here can be a part of that of a reconnection. And if that is the case, the moon's trine to Neptune can be nostalgia. I just want to talk about how something used to be. I want to tell you this story. I want to tell you all about these things. I want to bring you into something. I want to show you something. I want to bring something to light. I want to enlighten you about something. Some people, you're going to hear the most crazy story of something that has already occurred. And the more we're talking, the more we're healing. The more we're overcoming the past, the more we're working through something, and the more we're transitioning, because this entire week is about a transition. I like this week. I like where we're going in the energy right now. Now, I want to be super clear. There's going to be some crazy that comes up later in the month. But in this moment, in the first few weeks of December, I like where we're at, and I like the possibilities, and I like where we are going. I really do. Because I feel like we have something that can really be healing to the heart and healing to the soul. Some people are going to have waves of confusion this week. Some people are not going to be confused anymore. In fact, as more and more things will come to light, there will be less confusion because we're going to understand somebody very, very differently. The majority of my examples this week were more towards like transitioning in a positive sense and overcoming something. But some people, some of this energy could actually be agreeing to separation and agreeing to go stay with somebody else. And the shock by the end of the week is going to be telling your best bros, oh yeah, I'm not at home anymore. I'm staying at his house. That's why we're doing football over here. And there can be elements of that too. And there can be shock, but there can be supportive shock by the end of the week. I don't wish negative on anyone, but I'm realistic to how these energies can fold out. And as they continue, we are supposed to have something that, again, pushes for a mindset change to start something new. And that start something new is going to be something that really comes through in the next week. Because in a 48-hour span, we're going to have a new moon in Sagittarius. And we're going to have Mercury turn retrograde next week. So this thing that's unfolding, this thing that's taking shape, this new area of what we're trying to deal with, this next place as to where we're going, is meant to trigger a rethinking and a refocusing and a new process, a new strategy, a new plan, a new way of communicating, and a new thing unfolding. And for some people, this temporary energy can be a reality check of what it would actually be like to not be in a situation with somebody else if you were going into separation. For some people, the reality check is going to be you have been separated for so long, and now you don't even understand why. You might later, but in the moment, you're just like, I don't know why we couldn't get along. I don't know why I couldn't stay in this conversation. I don't know why I got scared. I don't know why I ran away. But in the moment feels promise. Enjoy the promise while we have it. I really like this week. And I feel like it will lead to more things. And those more things are going to be the things that happen in the Mercury retrograde. We have a lot of transition in the energy. We have a lot of good things that are starting to unfold. A lot of good things that are starting to come to light. The things that start to transition throughout the rest of this month need this week to, again, put the right places. This is my spot on the board. This is where I'm going to be for now. This is how I think for now. This is where I'm going to be for now. We need to get something figured out, even if it's temporary. Some people, it's not temporary. It's going to lead to a temporary disruption, especially if it's a mechanic contractor situation. It's going to lead to a temporary disruption that will have a difference in the results afterwards because the car is going to finally work. The room is going to finally be redone. The floors are going to finally be different. The thing is going to change. And that's a good thing. We need the transition. We need to no longer be stagnant. We need to no longer be stuck. And this is a week that we can start to feel the difference of what it's like to not be stuck in a certain situation anymore. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Again, if you've booked readings with me, if you booked them in the last week, I already gave you a timeline based off of like what my turnaround is. If you've been waiting on a reading, you either just got them or you're about to get them at the first part of this next week. So things are on the way. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Ways to contact me are in the description. So I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.